Hello and welcome to the Meg Method podcast, the podcast that helps you move, think, and feel better so you can do more of what you love with the people you love. And we know how many of you love to run a marathon. And today we'll be talking about the world's oldest annual marathon. It's the Unicorn Marathon that everyone hopes to catch a place for. It's the Boston Marathon. And I'm joined by the real life Mr. Motivator who's going to be running Boston for the second time, Mr. David Yim, or Yimmy, as he is known to his many fans. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, really, really good to be back. I feel like there's so much has happened since the last time I saw you.
So much.
I've run Tokyo, I've run Rome. Both really good advice from you, Meg. So some super top tips. We're gonna have to seriously upgrade that Tokyo episode when we get around to it.
We absolutely are. I've had a lot of messages about it from people listening with their own updates. So please do keep sending them our way because we love to hear from you. And that's the whole point, right? We want to do these podcasts. We want to help, give you some tips that might help your experience. But really, it's about helping you have your own incredible experience and discovering things for yourself. So we always appreciate all of the anecdotes you send our way of how your race has gone. I'm glad you enjoyed Rome. We'll have to do a Rome episode together.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Meg? I had so many people come up and I had one person on the course and I was laughing. I've just done your video, actually.
Yeah.
And I was laughing and somebody came running back. They were in front of me and they sort of stopped and sort of waited for me to catch up. And they said, I've only listened to the podcast, so I don't know what your face looks like, but I definitely recognize that laugh. And you're that guy who's on that Meg Method podcast, aren't you? And I said, yes, I am. We had a bit of a giggle. It was so funny.
It's funny. It's surreal as well, isn't it? I was when last year when I did Tokyo, I was running with Russ, and people literally just from my voice were like, "Hey!" We were both like, "What is going on?" But that's so sweet. Really appreciate everyone that listens, and it's so nice to hear that it's helped your race in some way. And that is our aim today. Today's episode is a short, sweet top up about the main facts you need to know about this year's Boston Marathon. If you want to hear a more in-depth episode with all our anecdotes, our thoughts, our top tips, then please do go back and listen to episode 161 of the Meg Method podcast to listen to our big Boston Marathon episode. I'll put the link in the show details. But today, let's give you the short and sweet facts about this year's race, which is the 129th Boston Marathon. It's presented by Bank of America. It would also take place on the 250th anniversary of Patriots Day. So a bit of an unusual one because the race takes place on Monday, April 21st, 2025. What's it feel like doing a Monday race, Jimmy? It's the second time you've done this now.
It was weird last time because you seemed to have all weekend, and I got to the Sunday and I didn't quite know what to do with myself. and
this is messed up Medal Monday.
This is totally messed up my Medal Monday. I was
Start malfunctioning.
I can't do it on a Tuesday. What's going to happen?
Just doesn't work.
It messed with my mojo. I tell you what. The hard thing though is same as last time in 23 when I last did this race. Of course, I'm then going to be flying back into London on Tuesday night, getting back in for Wednesday, and I'm going straight to the London Marathon running show, the Expo, as we call it.
We've made it all fancy.
London Marathon running show. To get my bib, and it's like, wow, I could really have done with this race being on on the Sunday. It gave me an extra day, but it does give me an extra day to recover from Paris, which I've recently just signed up for. Not like I didn't have enough races in my race schedule already.
What's another one?
Well, just chuck it in there, you know.
Just chuck it in there. So, it's a Medal Monday you'll be able to make up for. I don't know how we feel about the Tuesday, but it's a unique A unique day for the race indeed. And so today, like I said, we want to jump in. Unfortunately, it's not as fancy as the London running show, but there will be the Boston Marathon Expo this year. It takes place at John B. Hines Veterans Memorial Convention Center. It's going to be open Friday, April 18th, 10 till 7, Saturday, April 19th, 9 till 7, and Sunday, April 20th, 9 till 6 p.m. You want to go there, you're going to pick up your bib number, race packet, and t-shirt bib pickup. You've got lots of sponsors and exhibitors there. You've got the Adidas Boston Marathon store. That is the main sponsor for the race. Pretty good merch. And usually that's the merch, right, that everyone wants to have.
It's the jacket, Meg.
Right,
it's the jacket.
jacket.
And I've got to say, I'm really glad I'm running it again, because last time I went, it was this horrible grey colour.
Oh no!
And it's this weird thing with that one pocket. And I'm glad to say, I mean, they still haven't brought back the embroidery, so we've still got embroidery gate, right? But at least this year's jacket is like a really nice blue colour, and I'm really looking forward to hitting the merch. And hopefully, I mean, last time I went, the merch wasn't as great. I have to say the selection wasn't as great. But, you know, it was all about the jacket at the end of the day. The other thing is to note about the Expo, of course, like all the majors, you have to take your ID. You can only collect your bib, and you have to go to a specific stand, and according to your bib number, where they give you your race bib number in an envelope, your race packet, and they will also give you your bag with all your swag in, whatever you've pre-ordered.
Absolutely. So lots to look forward to there. Lots of photo opportunities as well, and to mingle with other runners. Now, if you're running the Boston Marathon, the things you get access to is, of course, the admission to the Boston Marathon Expo. Your family's welcome as well. You'll get a long-sleeved T-shirt by Adidas. You get your bib number. You'll have your participant gear check bag. We'll talk a little bit about checking that gear bag in later. You get an official program. You'll get that complimentary transportation to the start that we'll talk about in a little bit as well. You're going to have access to all the Poland natural spring water and Gatorade along the course. There'll be medal facilities that we're talking about. And for the Boston Marathon to be have that finisher's medal and be considered as an official finisher, you must cross the finish line on Boylston Street prior to the finish mats being removed. And they are pretty tough for the Boston Marathon, right, Yumi?
It's 6 hours 30 from the last runner crossing the start line, which isn't too bad. It's not like 7 hours from gun time like they had in Tokyo, for example. So it isn't bad. But I think that if anyone is really thinking about, is worried about the cutoff times, I'd say just be near the front of the corral to give yourself a little bit more time on the course, particularly if you're running Boston for the first time and you get allocated. I think all the tour companies get allocated to the last wave anyway, and so if you haven't run a qualifying time, and I think that you do start, you will get time to finish, but I think just if you're worried about it, just be at the front of the corral, just like in Tokyo.
Yeah. Absolutely. Fantastic advice there. Just to mention a few other things, you've got the Expo. As I say, we won't go more into that, but like you've got plenty of opportunities there. Cliff is going to be the official energy bar for the race. They will be there at the Expo as well as things like Samuel Adams. You've got Shocks, all of those things. So enjoy the Expo. There is the Boston Marathon Fan Fest that takes place across the weekend that you can go and check out. There's going to be it's one of those things to soak up a bit of race week atmosphere. They've got some live music, activities, things like that. And then on Saturday, the April 19th, the places go quick. So I believe you already would have had to book at 8 a.m. You've got the Boston 5K presented by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare.
I'm a bit miffed about that. I didn't get a ticket. You know what? You have to. One thing to note: if you are running the 5K, you pick up your bib from the Expo
as well,
and you have to get it on the Friday, obviously, because Saturday morning the Expo won't be open by the time the race starts. But my goodness, if you've got a ticket, you've got to the 5K, you're in for an absolute treat, because it was the biggest 5K I've ever participated in, right? And although I have to say, when I ran the Chicago 5K, Meg, to get the bobble hat, remember we were talking about the bobble hat? You know what? That was a really, really well-attended race as well. But the Boston one was ridiculous. It was there were so many people, and it's friends, family, kids run it as well. Sadly, I'm going to miss it this year. I might just go for a lie-in, actually, and then go watch the ball game.
Love that. Why not soak up that the Boston vibes? Definitely try see a ball game if you can while you're there. So not too jealous, Jimmy. I think you've got some good plans there. But if you are there and you've got a place, then enjoy that 8 a.m. Boston 5K. And if you're planning to run Boston, if you're listening to this and planning to run Boston in the future, that's something to consider and to get that space early. Should we have a little bit about transportation to the start, Jimmy?
Yeah, you've got the buses that queue up at Boston Common in the morning. Yep. So the idea is you take your bag for your bag drop, and you drop it in the bag drop area first before you then get onto the bus. Now, you'll see it's a really, really well run operation. I mean, my goodness, they've done it 129 times, or 128 times already. This is the 129th
think they'd like to have got it smooth sailing by now.
Exactly. You'd have thought they'd have sussed it out by now.
But be a bit miffed, so they said we need a few more goes.
Exactly. But the great thing is, you get there in the morning. It's early. The year I did it was a little bit drizzly. And there's like all of these just outside Boston Common, and you walk down one of the sort of side streets, and you see row upon row upon row of school buses, yellow school buses. And basically, you take your bag, you put it on the school bus, and then you wave bye-bye to it there. Then you have to walk back to sort of Boston Common, get into another line where you then line up for these coaches. And I think there were a couple of them were still the school buses to take you all the way to the 26 miles away to the start line in Hopkinton, which is just super, super cool. I mean, the vibe there is incredible, because everyone's so excited, because, as you say, it's the unicorn race, right? People have been building themselves up for this one. People have had to qualify for this one. And for anybody else who's sort of completing their 6 stars, it's been the hardest one to get in. So a lot of people finish their 6 stars in Boston. So the excitement levels, you know, that sort of like nervous excitement as you get on the bus, it's incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yes, I'm so excited for you to soak up that atmosphere. And just remember, to be able to get onto the buses, you do need to be able to show your bib number. So have that at the ready at the time. You will also get a return bus service to Hopkinton. So that begins at 1 p.m. on race day. And that's when the buses will start commencing. They'll line up from Columbus Avenue between Clarendon Street and Carner's Place. And it's for official entrance only. Can't squeeze your family on, unfortunately. Okay. And once again, you've got to show your bib to get on board that bus. The buses will go to the South Street parking lot, and the return bus service to Hopkinton will conclude at 7 p.m. on race day. So there'll also be limited parking for participants available at 52 and 80th Street, but they do try and encourage you to be using the buses instead. Now, Yumi talked about before the gear check, getting your bag on that bus. So on race morning, you can check your bag in using clear plastic finishing area gear bags that would have been given to you at the Expo, and that's on Boylston Street and Berkeley Street beyond the finish. So this area is 2 blocks east of the finish line and 1 block west of Boston Public Garden.
But when you're there, it feels like forever walking to
so
it.
I'm told.
You know what? It's like it made me think. Who was I talking to in Rome? I was talking to my friend Rich, who I ran Rome with. He didn't quite do the full Monty like you did, Meg.
Yeah.
I think he'd had enough of me at 24.5 miles, and he sort of like dropped back.
He did leave you on the hill then, did he?
He left me on the. I think I left him at the hill, to be fair. But we were saying like London's great because you can get your bag like 300 meters after you finished with
It is one of the best races for that.
It is for that level of organization and logistics. But this isn't far away, but it does feel like a bit of a walk when you've finished the Boston Marathon, particularly after you've done all those hills and your legs are really feeling it. But you know what? The adrenaline carries you there. I remember just hobbling over to get my bag and meeting David afterwards, and it just felt like a really long distance, really far away. Yeah,
a long sought after reunion with Divad, just hopping along. So the drop-off hours for the gear check is 5:45 till 9:15 a.m. and pickup hours is 11:30 to 6 p.m. Now, your gear check bag, you've got that clear drawstring bag. It measures 18 by 19 inches, and it's got this gusseted bottom that's labeled on one side. And no gear bags will be accepted or transported from Hopkinton. So make sure you do that in the right area there, and no other bags will be accepted. Some prohibited items to be aware of this race, because it can differ slightly depending on where you're running. There is no personal hydration system products allowed for this race, right? So you can't have camelbacks or things like that. No weighted vests or any sort of vest with pockets or water bladders, and no backpacks of any kind either. Glass containers will not be allowed into the race. Also, no selfie sticks. I'm sorry for all our aspiring YouTubers, and they also do strongly discourage you wearing any cameras like a GoPro as well. So that's just something to consider there.
Do you know what? I think one thing I should clarify, though, you can have soft flasks. You can have a handheld bottle. I use the soft flasks in my bottle belt, which is one of the reasons why I switched from using a hydration vest to the bottle belt system and with soft flasks, is because it couldn't carry, ever since the rules changed after the Boston bombing, you can't have anything over the shoulders. So, and that's understandable. So you respect the rules, and you can take your handheld and your own soft flask. As you know, I use Tailwind.
Yeah.
So my own hydration, nutrition, and I carry my own. Although I do make use of all the Gatorade and the Free Morton's gels on the way as well, but more about that in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. If you listen to the big episode 161, you'll find out how Yimmy came back with more Mortons than he started.
I was enriched.
Yeah, he's enriched, exactly. So listen to that episode for all of those hacks. You'll be richer than when you started. You will also get a start area bag. So that is the only bag allowed on those official buses and in the start area. So that primarily is meant to serve to carry your food items essentially to the start. So no other bags other than that plastic start bag will be allowed on the bus, but just know that you've got it. And then let's talk a little bit about that start area in Hopkinton, the athletes village.
It's the weirdest thing, Meg. It is the weirdest place. It's like a middle school or something. And there's like a sports hall behind there.
You feel like you're in an American movie.
You are in some like American high school drama thing. And I will point out, and this is the mistake I made last time, there are two areas. There's like the sort of main area, and you'll see there's a massive like marquee big tent thing there. And but then I was told that there are more toilets in the alternative area. So if you walk straight rather than turn right into the athletes village, there's a whole nother area where there's loads and loads of toilets which have very little queue, and all the urinals in the middle as well, which was really, really like convenient. And I think I was saying in the main episode it was raining, and I was like huddled underneath this little like doorway thing, trying to stay, with a borrowed blanket that somebody had abandoned, like the littlest hobo. And I was just doing my post, and our friend Rich Loud says, "Why aren't you under the tent?" And I was like, it was only later on after I was gotten soaked that I realized this is massive
rookie mistake.
Total rookie mistake. So there is if it is raining, and you can expect any kind of weather apparently on Boston. I mean, last time it was drizzly and raining, and it dried up at the end. We've had some years where it's been super, super sunny, and people have got sunburnt on one side because obviously it's a west to east course.
Yeah.
And they're running, and because you're basically running in a straight line all the way with 4 turns on this course, people were getting sunburnt on one side. So do take some sunscreen, or do take something like a foil blanket if you want to stay warm in that start line area, but get underneath that tent. Yeah. The other thing I'll point out about the start line area in Hopkinton, super friendly. There's lots of as you walk into the corrals, there are more toilets on the way. And I remember there's one literally just 250 meters from the start line. There's one last set of toilets. And what was brilliant was this table there with everyone's excess stuff that they didn't want to carry.
I bet you were like a moth to a flame there.
You know what? I was like, oh no, I had bulging pockets.
Exactly.
You know me, I'm like a pack horse when I go running marathons.
Love a freebie.
But these people were like, I don't need this many gels, so they'd leave some gels, but they wouldn't throw them away, but they left them on the table. And if you needed one, it was like Saturday swap shop.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly.
That's your motto.
This is where Divad left his old pair of shoes, because he'd taken an old pair of shoes because he didn't want his flashy running shoes to get muddy, and he left them there. And I spent the next 20 minutes as we were walking to the start line going I can hear them crying, I can hear them pining for you. And he was going I feel bad enough.
Come back.
Bad daddy. Bad daddy.
Bad daddy, Divad.
But yeah, that's the start line area. Super friendly. Lots of toilets. Swap shop with all these sort of spare energy gels and stuff. Yep. And look out for that start line as well, because it comes up as a surprise. And everyone I've spoken to who did their first Boston have said, the first time the start line caught us completely by surprise. So do look out for that.
Brilliant. And also, to get into that start area, you do need your bib again. And in extra to what Yumi was saying, they've going to have, in addition to all of those portable toilets, they also have Poland spring water, Gatorade as well. So that's an opportunity to say top up those water flasks that you have something to drink there. And then it is a 0.7 mile walk from the athletes village to your corral. So a short little stroll there. And all runners are numbered according to qualified time. So you would be given that that wave and corral in advance. You should be able to see that on your bib number, and that's what's going to get you into corral. So wave 1, you're going to be going off at around 10 a.m. Wave 2, 10:25. Wave 3, 10:50, and wave 4 at 11:50.
I can't believe how late this starts, right? I mean, I know London starts 9:30 till 11:30, 9:35 to 11:30. So it is still quite late. I mean, it's not quite as late as I mean, I've just gotten used to Tokyo, which was like a 9 a.m. start, and Rome, which was like an 8:50 start. Now the thought of starting the marathon at 11:15 just makes me go, ugh.
Well, I was going to say, do you not remember New York?
Don't even go there. Just don't even go there, right? Although I have to say, this year, because I didn't wait for 3 hours because our bus got lost.
But you're like a sprint.
Because I took the Staten Island ferry, I only had an hour's wait, so it wasn't too bad. And even though it was a late start, it wasn't a long wait. So 11:15, maybe it's not too bad. I am in that last wave again, and they are quite strict. If I remember, they were checking the bibs to make sure that you were in the right corral. And even though I think last time I was in wave 4, corral 6, and next 7 was almost like that was next to us, and we walked together, and then we sort of took off, and then the next one came behind us, sort of thing. So they are quite strict about getting you in the right corral.
Yeah, absolutely. So just again, have that bib on all morning, so you can get on the bus, you can get in the start wave, and you can get into your corral. And as I say, I'd say a medium start time there amongst the majors, and then get ready and get excited to race. Another thing I meant to mention as well, in that start area they do have 2 medical tents, so if you need some last minute band-aids, Vaselines, a pre-race stretch, that's one that you don't often get, the pre-race stretch, or some words of encouragement, you can go do that there. Then let's talk about the course itself, shall we? Do you want to give a little bit of a rundown of the course?
So the course itself, I mean, I would actually say if you strip away the sort of heritage around this, the course actually is quite unremarkable.
Yeah.
But it is technical, and you know, you do run through like 7 towns to get to Boston, where you finish, and you are 26.2 miles away. You're starting in this sort of like suburban town called Hopkinton, and actually the actual start line is next to the public library, and it's like a 2-lane road. It's a very nondescript kind of place. Whereas you compare like other start lines of other majors, you think about Berlin, for example, all that sort of like big row of runners all down one stretch sort of thing. This is a very, very nondescript kind of place. I would say I'll break the course down into like sort of 5-mile chunks. The first 5 or 6 miles, it's all rolling hills. You cross the line, and straight away in mile 1, there's 130 feet drop. So like in New York, where we say don't start too fast, this one is control your pace.
Yeah.
Because if you overrun, and if there's any course like New York, if you overrun the first half, it's really going to hurt you when you get to the Newton Hills later.
Sure.
So watch out for those. Within mile 2, you're into Ashland, the next town, and it's all rolling hills, but it's net downhill. So the first, you know, 5 or 6 miles is rolling downhill. Get into mile 5, just before the mile 5 marker, you get into the third town, which is Framingham. All the locals come out and support on the side, which is great. They're all outside their houses and stuff. And I was actually surprised at how many supporters came out. It's kind of like the beginning of London, where you run through Woolwich and it's single file, but people are out and it's quite consistent. You then get into sort of like Framingham, and you run through like commercial town sort of space. And then it sort of like goes a bit quiet from mile 7 to sort of mile 10, 11. And this is where there's one bit where you run past this big lake. You run into Natick, and that's the next town along. And again, it turns back into suburbia. But then you get into this sort of like wooded area, and then there's the lake there's 2 lakes on either side of the course.
And then you have to swim, and then...
I didn't think I'd signed up for an Ironman,
like...
you know. But because there's like a lake on each side, it's hard for spectators to get there. So it does go quiet. And I would say in that little bit, I remember when I did it last, it rained quite hard. Then the rain picked up, and I used that as a bit of respite and a bit of settling in and calming my nerves down.
Yeah.
Because the next bit, when you get to mile 11, you start at mile 11, you see the Welcome to Wellesley sign, and you know what's coming because it's one of the highlights on the course, right? You get to mile 12, you run through this like wooded area. I remember it well because that's where I left a couple of my friends who ran into the woods to go and use the nature's toilet. And you run up this hill, and then this is like steep downhill. And as soon as you crest this hill around mile 12, you hear this noise. And it's like that bit where you pick up the water bottle at the mile 12 aid station at in London Marathon, and you hear the noise of the Tower Bridge. This is like the scream tunnel is coming outside Wellesley College, and that's where all the students come out. All the lectures are cancelled for the day, and they come out and they scream. Go and get your hugs, kisses, whatever you like. If you like going to hug and kiss students, then you know, be my guest.
Well,
but it's not actually a tunnel, I should say. It's a scream. It's a big sort of like well-supported area, and they're screaming so loud it feels like a tunnel. So that's why it's called the Scream Tunnel.
The tunnel of noise. Love that. Love a bit of atmosphere on the course. Then what comes after the Scream Tunnel with all this?
Scream Tunnel. Apparently. Well, you get to the halfway in Wellesley town. You sort of run through the town, you know, and it's sort of like, it's quite nondescript. It's a bit flat for a little bit to mile 15. And then after that, there's a big drop. I think it's actually the biggest downhill just after mile 15, and the crowd does thin out a little bit, and then you get to mile 16 and you see this sign that says entering Newton, and I took a picture of the sign, I remember, and I was thinking like, oh god, here we go. And they say that the real halfway point is mile 16. This is where you'll find out whether or not you actually ran the right strategy, because here come the 4 Newton Hills.
Yeah.
But before you get there, you actually cross over this big motorway. I think it's like Route 128 or something. And there's this big road, this road bridge that you have to run up. And it reminded me a bit of like, oh no, not another road bridge. Like,
yeah.
right.
Not another.
And I was so sort of stressy about the hills, the Newton Hills, that I actually mistook that for the first hill. So when I got to Heartbreak, I was like, oh my God, there's another one? Is that number 3 or number 2? But there are 4 Newton Hills. When you get to sort of like 17 and a half miles, it's like a big right turn at the firehouse. And you're into Commonwealth. And then you get the hills, and the 4 of them, I think the worst one is actually the second one. And then you sort of like, there's the third one. They're not big. In the main episode, I give the precise stats in terms of elevation, etc. But the last one I will mention, episode 161. I mean, I do give the precise. I sort of drew the map. I drew the map out on footpath. But on this episode, I will mention that Heartbreak itself is not a big hill. It's only 800 meters.
More about placement in the race.
Yeah. And you know what it's like, Meg, when you're doing your Ironman and other endurance events, where you've had to bank some energy, and then you bring that out at 20 miles after 3 hills, and you're into the 4th one. A 3.3% average climb over 800 meters just feels like forever.
100%. If you want to be an endurance athlete, that's what it's about, right? Thinking about the race as a whole and being tactical with that, not just looking at, here's the big elevation I don't have to worry about till this point, or the downhill. It's like, how does this come together across the length of the race, right? That's the endurance we're looking at.
100%. And it's about playing the long game and thinking smart. And I would say, if you can get to the top of Heartbreak Hill and feel like you're not dying, then you're going to have a good last 5 miles of the race. You're going to be okay. I was really pleased when I got to the top of Heartbreak last time round, and I thought, wow, I've run my strategy correctly. I mean, there are 1 or 2 little surprises in terms of inclines coming up. It's not all flat in the last 5 miles, but mile 21, you see Boston College, and it's a beautiful building. I think Divad's family were there. I had the Sports Tours cheer zone there last time. And you feel the crowd starts to build and build and build. Yeah, and that atmosphere keeps building, and it's fantastic. Then mile 22, so the mile 22 into 23, you're into Brookline, which is the town before you get to Boston. I'd say just watch out for the train tracks. I do remember that. That was really, really good advice, particularly if it's been raining. It can be slippy. And then you get to the talisman, like the North Star. You hit 24.5, and you crest this little hill, and you see it for the first time, and your heart just like jumps. It's the sit-go sign. And you know by the time you get to the sit-go sign, you've got about a mile to go. But everyone, and there's a photographer there, by the way, of because it's an iconic moment, right? You're running past this sign that everyone looks out for. Then at 25 miles with 1K to go, in the 26th mile, I should say, with 1K to go, you hit this underpass called Tommy Leonard Bridge.
Okay.
And you run down, and so people have told me it's a bit like this in Paris as well. It's a bit like that moment coming out of the Blackfriars underpass in London. It's not a big thing, but it's like a gentle rise. But because you've gone down and you're coming back up, it just feels like you're climbing Everest on the way out. But that's 1 km to go. And I remember somebody had painted like Boston Strong on the top, which was amazing, because it was very, very emotional when we saw that. And then you're into the last bit, right onto Hereford. Saying it, I've just got goosebumps just saying it, right onto Hereford, left onto Boylston, and then 600 meters to glory. It's just incredible. And the crowd is just epic on that last bit. Big grandstands on both sides where the spectators can cycle out in and out of those grandstands. So if your family's there, they can get a seat and watch you at the finish line, all the way to the finish line. And it's so wide, Boylston's so wide, and you end basically just before Copley Square when you run down Boylston Street, and it's just an incredible feeling. And that's the Boston Marathon. So only 4 turns, really.
Yeah.
Lots of little bumps.
And possibly a dodgy looking suntan.
A permatan on one side.
Yeah, wonder what beds you've been going to, depending on the weather. But no, iconic. I'm so excited for everyone who gets to run it this year. As I say, it really is that unicorn race. It doesn't matter how you got into it. It's hard, right? Every way it's been well fought for to get that place. So if you are running this year, enjoy it. And thank you, because that's a really amazing breakdown of what to expect along the course in terms of like amenities, the things that you've got on the way and to expect. You've got the Morton hydrogel depot there. So the stations will be located on mile 11.8 on the Wesley Town line, mile 17 in Newton, and at mile 21.5 just after Boston College. So that's the gel 100. There's a non-caffeinated one, and then there's a caffeinated one as well.
They do shout out. It's usually each side of the road. You can hear them shouting, caffeinated, non-caffeinated, and they keep shouting. And there's one great thing about it. I mean, I remember in Berlin where they ran out of the gels for some of the slower runners. Even when I know. I think just too many participants. We'll have to cover that in the top-up episode, Meg.
Yeah.
But Boston had plenty, which is why I ended up going out with 3 and coming out with 5. So,
exactly. He's become like a Morton gel dealer after that race. He was rich. If you want to replace those fluids, you've got the Poland spring water and lemon and lime Gatorade. They've got their endurance formula stations that's set up along the course beginning at mile 2. As I mentioned earlier, Cliff Energy Bar is the official race energy bar. Again, we suggest it every single episode. Try not to do anything new on race day. So we're telling you this stuff in advance. If you can get access to these things beforehand, give them a try. Even you've got a last minute chance if you're going to the Expo to try some of these things. If you haven't prepared otherwise, try before you do the race. Just don't get into any trouble. You're going to have course clocks and mile/kilometer signage en route. You've got digital clocks positioned at every 5K mark and key mile locations. And they indicate the official running time from when it started at 9 a.m. And then you'll have signage that indicates miles and 5K marks along the way. A lot of medical services available for this
26.
race. Probably the most that I've ever seen. 26 medical stations along the route. You can get basic first aid, wraps, massage and stretching again. That kills us every time. These at your own risk. I think you're brave if you're doing a massage midway, but that's them, massage and stretching. And then you've also got some simple wound stuff and blister care. You also do have the medical sweep buses as well. So they're positioned along the course at the aid station. So any runners that feel like they cannot finish the race, I hope that isn't anyone who's listening to this podcast. I hope you have a great and a safe event, but they are there if you do need a sweep to the finish line, and there'll be more medical services at the finish line as well.
I would add that actually they've got their own version of the not tail walkers, but tail cyclists.
Oh, even worse.
Yeah, so they have some cyclists at the back who are there to support the back of the pack runners. So if you're running slower than a 14:23 mile pace, then the cyclists at the back will basically make sure that you're okay and that you've got support. The toilets are very, very frequent. At the beginning, I think they're once every sort of in the aid stations with the Poland Spring and the Gatorade. Yeah. They start off at about mile 2, and then they're every 2 miles or so. But towards the end of the race, they become more frequent. So it's about 1.5 miles, and super well signposted. One of the best, well organized sets of aid stations I've seen on any of the races. Where I think it's just because, and I don't want to be sort of snooty about this, I think it's because you have so many more sort of qualified runners who are rather than first timers. You don't really do first time marathon in Boston. I don't think it's a rarity if you do. But I think that because of that, people are kind of more tuned in and more experienced. They're more experienced runners, I should say, who are doing Boston. So you don't get that crowding in the first table, as it were. So really, really well organized, and less people in the field as well, which means that actually, there's no problem getting water and Gatorade.
Yeah, and from a point of view in terms of weather, that we haven't talked about this race, in April in New England, you can have a hit or miss. So it can be cold and rainy at that time. So again, think about dressing appropriately. You have a lot of body heat that's lost for your head. So think about that at the start line. At the 17-mile mark, entering Newton, I believe you described that as, you can have some strong cold crosswinds there. So that's something to think about. And also thinking about in advance, again, that if you are going to have potentially a wet and cold race, make sure that you've got gear to change into as soon as you possibly can when you cross the the finish line the other side. And I do know they give out some heat sheet blankets as well at the finish, just to keep you warm.
I've still got mine. Of course I have. I'm sentimental.
Another little bit of merchandise there.
I've got my heat sheet that has Boston Marathon on it. Of course, I thought I was only ever going to run it once, Meg. So I kept everything.
I bet you got like in Friends, like Monica Geller's cupboard. You just open up and it's this menagerie of marathon collector's items.
Cupboard. Oh, that's for amateurs. I've got a room.
You're like, Meg, I brought another property.
You could have put the Boston Marathon logo on a rock and I would have bought it, right?
Well, there you go, guys. If we get enough subscribers, you hear it here first, we're going to do a behind the scenes video on YouTube.
Yeah, we best not. But hey, you know what? Nice medal this year.
Love
really, really nice medal. Redesigned circular medal with the new sort of the revised Boston Marathon logo, incorporating Bank of America's logo. Very subtly done. I know there was lots of complaints last year about the fact that they really made it actually didn't look very classy at all. It was just very slapdash with the Bank of America on the bottom of it. And I think a lot of people complained about it. But a medal, nonetheless, it is. And it's a Boston medal. But this year's one is particularly good looking. Yeah,
really, there you go.
Really
all those
nice.
medal magpies. That's going to be even sweeter when you cross that finish line. And before we move on, I know we talked about the cold weather side of things, but we have to talk about the flip side. So you can also get warm weather at that time as well. So from a coaching point of view, think about like slowing your pace a little bit if you need to, if the heat and humidity is high on that day. You don't you've got that increased risk of overheating. And also pay attention to any announcements that they might have on course, and also following some extra hydration guidelines. So thinking about having a little bit of extra fluid before the race starts, regulating little and often throughout the race in that case. And again, also considering both water and the Gatorade at that time, so you're getting those electrolytes in as well. We just want to make sure that you are running nice and safe. So coming back to that finish line area, you've got the medical tents there if you need them. You should have Poland Spring Water, that mighty finishers medal, the heat sheet blanket if Yumi's not stolen yours. And then you've also got some more Gatorade, some food bags as well. And then there's 2 locations for you to exit from. You can exit from Boylston Street finish area. That takes you to the meeting area shown on the map. And if you use the gear check on Boylston Street after retrieving your bag, you then still need to exit following that path as well. Now, something to think about, it can take you up to about 30 minutes in some cases, I believe, to get out of that finish area. So that's something to think about when you're meeting up with your friends and family. There is along on Stewart, Berkeley and Clarendon streets, there is a family meeting area. You can meet them based on your alphabetical signs, but that's just something to think about. It will take you a little while to get there. I don't know if you have any extra tips on that, Yumi.
No, I think you've just about covered it. I remember it was just the wind, it was picking up the day that I ran it, and it was pretty windy and cold. So just keep that heat sheet on you until you get to your bag. Always take a nice warm top. I might actually, even if it looks like it's going to be inclement weather, I might even take my Tokyo Marathon sort of like robe thing. I might even take my orange wizard thing.
If you see a person wearing every single piece of merch from every major marathon, it's Yimmy.
I got 3 ponchos on.
You're like, who's that man with the 3 ponchos, the London Marathon cap, and wearing about 10,000 medals? We can hear him clanking down the street.
And you know what? I am going to take my medals with me, and I will have, because I've added Paris as an extra race, I'm going to finish my race, my Project 144, my 12 in 12 in Boston.
Incredible.
And
very special.
Hopefully, I never, ever take these things for granted, of course. So fingers crossed, and hopefully all goes well. You know, I'll be looking to collect my second 6-star medal in Boston this year.
Amazing. And so proud of you, my friend. Like, even before we've got there, you've just done an amazing job so far, all for Young Lives versus Cancer, which is our charity. An incredible cause. And you're going to be in such a select few company. There's very few people in the world that have managed to get that double 6-star, and you've done an incredible job and inspired so many people along the way. So good on you, my friend. And talking about post-party celebrations, there is a mile 27 post-race party. It's presented by Samuel Adams. So that takes place from 12 till 8 on City Hall Plaza. They've got sort of they're basically recreating that live magic of the marathon. So you might meet some family members there. You can go there yourself. It is $5 tickets for extra people. I believe you might get I think you might get admission with your marathon race. I'm not sure, but either way, $5 tickets for adults and free admission for children. It's just a place, basically, essentially it's got some snacks, it's got a beer garden. So if you don't know what to do to celebrate, there's just something official there that you can do if you want.
Yeah Brilliant.
Amazing. Well, I think that is what we've got to share today, because everything else, as I say, if you really want to hear our anecdotes, you want to hear our thoughts and facts, our top tips, we've got some, I haven't run the Boston Marathon yet, but I've been to Boston. So in that episode, we both share some places where you could go and do your carb loading, go do some traveling. So make sure you listen to that episode. But all I would say is, for everyone running, like I said, a huge congratulations, because even getting to that start line, even getting that place, you've done such an immense job to do that. Extra big love for anyone who's running for charity like Yimmy. That's another incredible race, putting Young Lives versus Cancer on the map. I so appreciate it. And have the best time. Go and chase that unicorn.